Coming to you once again from the frozen lands of Nador, and fortuitously no closer to eating Robin's minstrels at this point. So, hope you're having a good time and you're faring well during this. We need to get on and go ahead and talk about Lesson 23, the subjunctive mood. Now, we'll have our exam when we get back, and we'll have at least one class period where we have a review before we have the exam. What we may do is we may add Lesson 23, Lesson 24, hopefully no more than that to that first exam. But we'll just, we want to continue on. You get your homework done. You keep up with your homework. I'll take it all when we come back, and we'll go forward from there. Of course, if you're on campus and you want to get rid of it by sliding underneath my door, that's fine. As long as you slide it underneath my office door. Don't try to slide it underneath the Maddox door. That'd be chaos. I'm not sure the Maddox is even open now. I'm not going to stumble over there till I have to in this weather anyway. So, but let's go back and talk about Lesson 23. We get to start Lesson 23 with a handful of vocabulary, just maybe a dozen or so words there. And I hope you found that video on learning vocabulary helpful. I also, in the description of that video, I put a link to the repetition and review handout. I'm not sure if that's not already on VCamp, but you can't have too many links of some stuff. So new vocabulary. I'm in my copy of Croy, and I'm on page 100 and 137, and I'm going to get started with the new vocabulary here. We've got a nice little set of words here, some of them very helpful. And since this chapter is on the subjunctive mood, we have a couple of terms here that they've been waiting to give us until we got to the subjunctive mood. One of them because we didn't need it before, and others are just expanding on stuff that we already know. So let's get started with the first one, which is agorazo. Everybody say agorazo. And this means I buy or redeem. Now, the goofy way I remember that is, it sounds like a garage sale, which is where you buy and redeem a lot of really good stuff. But agorazo, it actually comes, it's related to the Greek word agora, which means market. And you can just take the zeta omega off of there and spell agora. And maybe you've heard of agoraphobia. That's the fear of public places or the fear of crowds that you would normally find in the agora. However you want to remember it, just remember agorazo means I buy or redeem. In the New Testament, by the way, this is the term that's often used when we're talking about Christ redeeming us from our sins or buying us back from the penalty of sin. So that's kind of cool. But it can mean buy, just like you might buy a milkshake. That's the same kind of a deal. Now the next word is on. And it's just a particle. It gets slapped into places. Normally what it does is it just tells the reader that there's an element of contingency coming up or in this phrase or this sentence. Hence, subjunctive mood. We're going to talk some more about that. So that's a word we've never seen before. You can leave it. Oftentimes it's left untranslated because the element of contingency is communicated in some other way. Maybe the use of may or might. But you can also kind of sometimes tag it on as the word ever. And that kind of communicates the contingency. It's the only word that I will allow you to leave blank on your quizzes and get full credit for it because it's often left untranslated. Don't try that on other words. Now we have graphe, a nice little feminine, first declension feminine noun, which means writing or scripture. And it's also, the reason it's capitalized is that's the word that the Jews used to refer to what we call the Old Testament. They call it the scriptures. You've heard Jesus say that a dozen or more times, or Paul say that in their writings. So scripture, graphe. All right, aeon. Aeon is used with the subjunctive mood. So if you see aeon, then you know you have a subjunctive mood verb coming up. And aeon was created by eliding a, which means if, and on, our little contingency particle, they get smooshed together, aeon, and become if, but only used with the subjunctive mood. Same thing with the next word, henna. Henna means in order that or so that. It's like haughty in some ways, not in the causal always the idea, but so that, in order that. But henna, if you see henna, you need to expect a subjunctive mood verb following it. And then kome, nice little first declension feminine word that means village. Mayday, which is just like uday, right, which means and not, nor, not even, but mayday will be used with the subjunctive, whereas uday will be used with the indicative mood verbs. Maketi, same thing, we're going to get down here below. Uketi, it means no longer, but maketi is used with a subjunctive mood. And then we have hupos, in order that or that, it takes the subjunctive as well. Hatan, there's haughty plus on put together, so that it means, haughty, the word we're getting ready to learn right here, not haughty with an iota, but haughty with an epsilon. Hate or haughty plus on, it means whenever, whereas hate means when, and it's used with the indicative mood. Then we have uketi, no longer, used with the indicative mood. And then finally, hos, it means as, how, that, about, like. It's a very common comparative, and it's not the only word that's used for like or as, but hos is a very, very, very common word. So from the beginning now, and you can repeat after me. I'll give a little bit of time to pause now. Agarazzo, on, graphe, aeon, henna, kome, mayday, maketi, hupos, hatan, hate, uketi, and os. Okay, now let's put our attention to lesson 23. We're still right there on page 137, and I would encourage you to kind of maybe pause the video and read, or read the whole thing first. In fact, if you want to pause now and read the chapter, if you've not done that yet, that's always a good idea. But let's first start by talking a little bit about mood. Now, we've learned indicative mood, and then we've also learned two modes. We've learned about infinitive verbs. They're not indicative. And we've learned about participles. They're non-indicative mood verbs. And all of our negations, like may, all right, and all the new forms of may, maketi, mayday, all of those are used with non-indicative mood verbs, whereas haughty and ook, and uday, and uketi, those are all used with indicative mood verbs. Today we're going to learn another mood. All right, it goes over here with the modes because you use those other negations, all the mays that go with that, and that's the subjunctive mood. So remember that participles and infinitives don't have mood; they're really a mode. But now we're actually learning a second mood. We have all of our indicatives and all of our tenses, all 5 of the tenses that we typically talk about. We don't count pluperfect; that's a 6th one, but all of our tenses and the infinitives. But now we're going to learn a new mood, all right? And remember that mood is the element of a verb that expresses the relationship between reality and action. So the indicative mood expresses reality, not necessarily truth, but reality. Like, for example, if I say I'm a frog, that's indicative mood. I'm making a statement. Reality and the action are together. That's not potential action. It's real action. It's not true. I'm not a frog. All right. My dad's nickname actually was Frog, but I'm still not a frog. All right. I'm not even Frog Jr. All right. The other moods all talk about potential action. Now, again, remember, infinitives and participles are modes, M-O-D-E-S. We're talking about moods, M-O-O-D-S. DS. The other moods express potential action. So we might say, I may be a frog. All right, there's potential action. There's a contingency element there. That's the subjunctive mood, by the way. That's what we're fixing to learn. Or there might be another mood that's called, oh, that I were a frog. That's real potential action. That's kind of the mood of wishing or wondering. We call that optative. We'll learn it later. It's not that significant because we don't have a bunch of them. Or the other mood that we're going to learn later on, which we have a lot of, are imperatives, commands. Be a frog, all right? That would be a command. And the reason that that's potential action, it's because it implies an act of volition on the person that's being spoken to in order to make you move from potential to real action. So today we're learning about the subjunctive mood, and it is potential action or contingent action. Croy says here on page 137, quote, the subjunctive mood conveys doubt, expectation, volition, intention, desire, and the like. That might be a good sentence to highlight got to have a little tea here today. That might be a good sentence to highlight in that paragraph there. The subjunctive mood conveys doubt, expectation, volition, intention, desire, and the like. Now, the good news about the subjunctive mood is we don't have to learn the subjunctive mood and 5 or 6 tenses. The subjunctive mood is only used with 2 tenses in Greek, the present tense and the aorist tense. It can occur in the perfect, but since there's only 10 of these verbs in the New Testament, let's just not worry about them, all right? They're probably going to be listed in the dictionary anyway, and we can just look them up and translate them there without any trouble. So, but if we'll learn present and aorist subjunctives, then we'll be good to go. So you see there on the bottom of page 137 in section 163 the forms of the subjunctive mood, and we're starting to get a little bit of a feel for what they look like. So we need to talk about present active subjunctive and present middle passive deponent. We know that's probably going to be most of the deponents are going to be translated actively. All of our middles are going to be deponents, pretty much without fail. And the passives may be deponent, may be passive. We'll figure about that later. So present, active, subjunctive. And then we'll have first, second, third person, singular, or plural. Now, if you look at how the present active subjunctive is formed, I guess a drink of tea would be nice. If you look at how the present active subjunctive is formed, you take the present tense stem, and instead of using omicron and epsilon as connecting vowels, like we do in the present tense, remember our little connecting vowel things, instead of using epsilon and omicron, we use eta and omega. We use lengthened connecting vowels. Epsilon always lengthens to eta. Omicron's always lengthened to omega. All right, so we've got eta, omega, and then primary active endings. So, you know, the o, ace, a, almaneti, usi, we got to take off those omicrons and epsilons and put on etas and omegas. And we know that first person singular there, anything in a dead fish is going to be a dead fish. Now, I know that looks just like a present active indicative first singular, but trust me, the subjunctive is either going to have one of those words like hatan or on or henna in front of it, or something else in the context is going to show us that that's a subjunctive and not an indicative. Plus, look at the rest of them. Lues, lue, luomen, luete, and luosi. All right, rather than luusi, luosi. All right, there's those forms. And then you can turn the page and look right there at the top of page 138 and find the present middle passive subjunctives. And again, present tense stem, eta, omega connecting vowel, and primary middle passive deponent endings. Looky there. luomai, lue, notice the iota subscript there, luetai, luamatha, lueste, and luontai. All right? Easy peasy. Now, let's talk a little bit about the aorist tense. Remember, and these are primarily first aorist that we're dealing with, and remember in the first aorist, the middle deponents and the passives and passive deponents do not form themselves the same way. And we're going to see that with the subjunctives as well. So with the aorist active subjunctive, aorist active subjunctive, you see it right there on page 138, no augment. You only have augments in indicative mood. You can have reduplication outside, but if you see an augment, it's got to be an indicative mood verb. So no augment. Then the aorist stem, first aorist stem, remember that involves that sigma alpha, but that's right, you guessed it. Instead of sigma alpha, we're going to have sigma eta or sigma omega, depending on the context. And then we're going to have, and this is weird, primary active endings. We don't have secondary endings on this. Luso, luces, luce, lusomen, lucete, lusoti, lusosi. Now, yes, Debbie, I know. You're going to ask, why does it use primary endings instead of secondary endings? I don't know. And neither does anyone else. And if anyone tells you they do know, they're probably full of hoo-ha, all right? Probably Mediterranean hoo-ha, which is the worst kind of hoo-ha. Just ask anybody in my family, all right? So, but they just do. That's just the way it is. I think because you don't have anything but aorist and present tense in the subjunctive mood, the Greeks maybe thought, why bother? But see there, I'm full of hoo-ha. Mediterranean hoo-ha. I just said, whoever gives an explanation is, there, I went and did it anyway. I don't know. That makes sense to me. I feel better about myself, slept well after I figured that out. Let's go on. Looky there. We've got the first aorist active. So we've got luso, luces. I think I already read those. The aorist middles, they form the same way. They have no augment. They have the aorist stem with sigma eta or sigma omega, and then the middle deponent endings. And looky there, primary middle deponent endings. So we've got lusomai, luce, lucetai, lusamatha, luceste, lusontai. And by the way, if you need a quick review of those middle passive deponent endings, amen, edi, usi, amatha, est, ontai, you can go back and check out that nice little YouTube video that Tariq made for us with the lovely Methodist symbol on the tie. Magnificent. Full-out gangster video, all right? Then finally, we've got the aorist, the first aorist, passive, possibly deponent subjunctives. And listen, instead of using no augment, aorist stem, don't think of it as theta eta, even though it looks like it. It's the theta, and then either the eta or the omega, and you'll see lutho, luthes, luthe, luthomen, lutheti, luthosi. Very, very simple. Now, so those are the forms. Really pretty much straightforward. The way you tell since so many of them use the primary endings, both the present and the aorist, the way you tell them apart is the sigma. The sigma for the aorist active and middle deponents, and then the theta for the aorist passive deponents. That's how you tell them apart, okay? Now, you may have noticed, hey, Croy didn't give us translations. No translations. Where are our translations? Well, subjunctives are a little, we can keep it simple. We can say something like, let's say with the present active indicative of luo, back on page 137. You might say, I'm, with the presents, I might say, I may destroy, you may destroy, he, she, or it may destroy. We may destroy, y'all may destroy, they may destroy. With the aorist subjunctives, I typically say they could be I may as well, but they could, to differentiate, try to say I might destroy, you might destroy, change from may to might. He, she, or it might destroy, that would be an aorist. And then the passives, just make those passives. I might be destroyed, you might be destroyed, he, she, or it might be destroyed, they might be destroyed. You get the base. That's the basic idea. But most of the time, the subjunctive is used to do something substantially more than just say may or might. And this is where we need to turn and look on page 139 in section 164, the uses of the subjunctive. And here's where the true genius and to the real heart of the subjunctive is. And yeah, this is syntax, and we try not to do much syntax. We try to just learn the forms and base translations. But when you learn subjunctives, if you don't learn a little bit more syntax than we normally do, you won't know anything about the subjunctive. So we're going to go ahead and jump in and talk about these, even though I'm not going to expect you to necessarily know all the terminology and all the functions of all the syntax of the subjunctive mood. Just some basics. Like look at that first one right there on page 139 with the, see the little number 1 in parentheses, the hortatory subjunctive. It's italicized right there underneath the number 1. The hortatory subjunctive is really only used with the first person plural, so the omen endings. And we're going to translate it, instead of translating it, say, we might destroy, it's a hortatory subjunctive. So it's kind of a mild command. So in other words, or permissive. So in other words, a hortatory subjunctive, first person plurals only, we're going to translate those, let us blank. Let us destroy. All right? So that's one use of the subjunctive mood. Number 2, you see that, the deliberative subjunctive. And that's typically used in questions that show possibility, desirability, or necessary or necessity from it. If I remember correctly, in the parable of the man whose ground produced a good crop, and he said, "What shall we do?" Right? That's subjunctive mood. What shall we do? He's deliberating, talking to himself. And then he goes back to indicative mood. I know what we will do. Yeah, see that's craziness deliberation. All right, but looky here, great Croy sentence here. Labomen arton apoton teknon hemon kai phagomen auton. Croy, leave the children alone. Shall we take bread from our children and eat it? No, Croy. What's wrong with you, boy? But you get the idea. Deliberative subjunctive. So it's using questions, debating possibilities, desires, maybe something of necessity. And then we have number 3, subjunctive of emphatic negation. Now I've already said you use may with the non-indicative mood verbs, and you use the oo with the indicative mood verbs. Well, in this particular situation, the Greeks like to use a double negative. Now, I know we're not supposed to do that in English, but in other languages, like Greek, the more negatives you pile on there, the more negative it is. It's not like English, 2 negatives make a positive, all right? It is just stronger negation. In fact, this is called the subjunctive of emphatic negation. And it's oo, may, and then an aorist subjunctive verb. Aorist subjunctive. Can be passive, can be active, can be deponent, but aorist subjunctive verb. And usually we end up translating this with the word never. And I'm laughing because at the bottom of page 139 is my all-time number 1 most favorite sentence that Croy fabricated for us. U me epete peri tes metros mu. You will never say bad things about that man. He really needs help. You will never. But see that u me epete? That's from Ipon. That's the aorist of Lego. You will never say bad things about my mother. Several years ago, we had a Greek T-shirt made, which we can do that if we want to, no problem. We had a Greek T-shirt made, and that was a sentence that was on there. A very well-known pastor in the Paragould area was in that class, and he could never remember. We joked about that sentence all year long with that class. He could never remember what that meant, and so we said bad things about his mother all the time. Okay, so we've got hortatory subjunctive, deliberative subjunctive, subjunctive of emphatic negation, and then we have a final subjunctive. And the final subjunctive is when you have henna plus a subjunctive mood verb. So you got a kind of an introductory clause, then you have henna, and then you have a subjunctive mood verb. And this is to show purpose. And this is very, very, very common. It's possible that this could be result, but it's typically purpose. Look at his examples here. Anabainamen, I'm on page 140 underneath number 4. Anabainamen proston hieron, henna idomen tauta ta samaya. We are going up to the temple. Henna, so that idomen, that's from idon, the aorist of harao or blepo, without the augment, so just the iota. Idamen tauta ta, so that we may see these signs. That's the purpose for going up. And then number 5, the last one that we're going to learn, is a subjunctive in a conditional clause. And this is where you have aeon. It's in the first clause of a sentence. You have aeon, which means if, plus a subjunctive mood verb. And we need to talk about if-then clauses or conditional clauses for just a moment. But aeon plus a subjunctive mood is what we would call a most probable future. If this happens, then this is likely the outcome in the second part of the sentence. Let's talk about. I think he teaches this. He sure does there in the first paragraph. He teaches us these two words: the protasis and the apodosis. Those are the technical grammatical terms for the if clause and the then clause. You wouldn't think that grammarians would sit around and call things if clauses and then clauses. Oh no, we need a word for that. So a protasis is the if clause, and apodosis is the then clause. And you might see they used a nice little Greek word, didn't they? Pro, which means before. I don't think we've learned that preposition yet. Pro means before, and apo, I know we've learned that, means after. So if, then, apodosis and protasis. That's not just Greek grammar teachers that use that, but that's across the board. So the subjunctive of a conditional clause is aeon plus a subjunctive mood, and you can have any mood in the apodosis, but in the protasis you're going to have a subjunctive with aeon. So it means something like, look down there towards the bottom of the page. If I receive a gift from them, I will write you. That's what we call it, the most probable future. Let me see if he gives us a name for this. He just calls it future or present general conditional clauses. And basically, we won't worry about all different types of these, but aeon, there in that second paragraph, conditions with aeon plus the subjunctive refer either to a future time or to a general circumstance in present time. The latter do not pertain to a specific stated as actual circumstances. They have a more general or proverbial quality. So look at your example there again. If I receive a gift from them, you see aeon dexomai, that's decomai in the aorist subjunctive, aorist deponent subjunctive, first person singular. If I receive, not saying that I'm going to, not saying that I will, I'm just saying if I received one, then I will write to you. But if I don't receive one, I'm not going to write you. Right? Or look at the next one. If sinners cry out to the Lord answers. Again, aeon hamartoloi, if sinners, Krazosen, that's a present, notice the present tense stem there, krazo. If sinners cry out, if they do, not saying they will, they should, but not saying they will, but if they do, the Lord will answer. See, it's a most probable future. But the condition is not thought of in reality. All right. So when we think about translation, we've got these 5 different uses, and oftentimes we'll use those conditions, those specific syntactical scenarios to guide our translation. If it's a hortatory subjunctive, it's going to be first person. And we're going to say, "Let us blank." All right. If it's a deliberative subjunctive, it's most likely going to have a question mark at the end, subjunctive, and we're going to kind of put that deliberation idea in it. If it has ume and aorist subjunctive, it is an emphatic negation. If it's henna plus a subjunctive, final subjunctive, or aeon plus a subjunctive, that what we call a third class, a most probable future a sentence. Now, the other times when we don't have one of those specific situations, we're going to keep it simple, and we're going to translate our present tenses with mays and our subjunctives, our aorist tenses with mights. And listen, I'm not hardcore about that. And you may hear me flip-flop and do it the other way around. But we're going to try to stay with may for the present subjunctives, active or passives, whatever. And we're going to try to stay with might with our aorist subjunctives. We do that, and I want you to do that, because when I see you write "I might," then I already know that you know that's an aorist subjunctive. Whereas when you write may, then I know already you know it's a present subjunctive. So you're showing me by your basic English translation that you've parsed it correctly. So if I see you translate "I may" and it's a subjunctive, I'm going to say, "Hey, what tense is that subjunctive?" Or vice versa. All right? So that's the big deal. Now, the last thing that we need to do in this chapter is talk about our good friend "I me," because we might be needing that. We may be needing that. We may need to say I may be, I might be, or you may be. That we may need to do that. And so "I me" in the subjunctive mood, right there on page 141, paragraph section or section 166. And if you're counting, you can also find that in the back of the book with the rest of the forms of "I me" on page 223. All right, so there's the subjunctive mood. If you have any questions, write them down and bring them up at the Google Meet meeting that we're going to have Friday, February the 19th at 9 a.m. I'll try to get logged on a few minutes early, and I'll send you an email. I'll set that up on my Google Calendar, and I'll send you an invite to that, and then it should have a link in it that you'll be able to click on and join the meeting. Now remember, I'm going to try to do that. I'll be on the road Friday morning because I have to go meet my first grandchild. She's going to be born on Friday. Her name's Addison Ray Morris, and we're really excited to meet her. And so Grandma and I are headed west, but I'll be happy to talk about Greek. Leandra is from Ohio. She's a better driver on the snow and the ice anyway. I'm from Oklahoma. I'm good in the wind, and I kind of I do this anyway, and that's not good on snow and ice. So Leandra's going to drive, and I'll try from my iPad. If the Verizon powers that be will let that happen, and we don't hit a dead spot, we'll make that work. If not, I'll reschedule that probably for Monday at 9, and I'll email you and let you know and give you a sign up on that, and we'll go from there. Just to let you guys know, and please don't pass this around a whole bunch, because my freshman New Testament classes don't know how to handle. But I'm gonna stay and play with the granddaughter first part of next week too. Plan on being back in class on Wednesday if the weather allows and everything else allows. But I'll keep up with this like we're doing virtually until then, and we'll go from there. And yeah, I might have a picture or two to show you when I get back. Hey man, I hope you guys have a great day, and may the peace of Christ be with you all. So, Kalehemera.